Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. Today's video will be astral projections and the gray aliens. I've had a number of comments asking me to do a video on any aliens that I have met, and in particular, the gray aliens were mentioned. So I'm going to detail a few experiences that I had in the late 80s with these beings. Now, these experiences I'm at least conscious of. I strongly suspect there were others as well that I don't have conscious access to. In the winter of 1987, I was in a bookstore, and suddenly I was drawn to the bestseller area where there was a book with a very compelling alien face on the cover. I was drawn to that book. I was captivated by this picture. There was these eyes, these ant eyes that just drew you in, and I felt sucked into this cover, mesmerized by this book. And this book was Communion by Whitley Strieber. That's spelled Strieber. I bought the book and read it, I think, in one sitting. It detailed the experiences that Mr. Strieber had over his lifetime with these gray aliens. Many of these experiences were unearthed by hypnosis. So he was able to, under this particular hypnosis, to recall a variety of experiences with these gray aliens that had transpired over his entire life. I was curious, to say the least, to do a little bit of investigation. And as I was an astral projector, I thought that I was in a very particularly strong position to do some research. So I inevitably did 4 visits to gray aliens through astral projection. And what I'll do is I'm going to briefly describe to you what I saw and the results of some questioning that I was able to do with these aliens. There's 2 basic types that I saw. Ones that were tall and tended to be very intelligent. And then there was the smaller kind that seemed much more robotic. And I even have a personal theory that I believe the small gray aliens are actually some sort of artificial life form, perhaps a highly sophisticated android, if you will, and that's able to follow instructions and perform a variety of tasks, while the larger ones perhaps are actual beings that that are physical and that are actually carbon-based life forms. Of course, I imagine the larger ones might be even more sophisticated androids. It's impossible to say. However, I will talk to you about the 4 experiences that I did have. The first 2 involved a rather large spacecraft, a saucer, if you will. It was in high orbit above the Earth. And I would say, roughly speaking, it was probably about 100 yards in circumference or somewhere a little over 90 meters. So fairly large. It was cloaked. And this is one of the reasons why I believe they probably can hide from us. As far as this information that I got from them, I can only vouch for it in that I'm relaying it to you the way I got it. How much of it's truthful, how much of it is some sort of fabrication, I suspect maybe somewhere around 50-50, 70-30. You figure out which is the lie, which is the truth. However, I do have a strong suspicion that there is truth mixed in here. A very interesting thing, the reason I was able to actually converse with these beings, is they were able to notice me immediately in my astral form, which I'm not typically used to when dealing with physical beings. So they have this ability to see people who visit them in the astral. So let's get into it. When I visited the ship, I asked them, why can't humans detect your ship in orbit? The answer was, it's cloaked. They use a system that involves magnetic waves and special alloys that aren't found on our planet. It's somewhat like stealth shielding, they said, but much more advanced. Then I asked them, where is your homeworld? What's it like there? I was told that, one time I was told that it was located in a world in the constellation that we called the Pleiades. Of course, another time, the second time I visited the craft, they told me that it was in Sirius. They said it's a binary system, i.e. there's two suns. One scientist told me that their scientist about 10,000 or so of our years ago, that one of their suns was getting hotter and that it would eventually make their planet unlivable. They said that many of their people today live in underground cities and that only the hardiest still live on the surface. It was this news, apparently, from their scientists that prompted them to begin their explorations in this section of the galaxy. As I said, the Greys can see in both the physical and the astral planes without difficulty. They've always noticed me immediately when I popped up on the ship, and they have shown a lot of curiosity about how I can manage to travel to see them so easily. One time, I was asked for my home coordinates so that they could come and, quote, visit me, unquote, in the physical. I thanked them for the offer, but I politely declined. They seemed disappointed in their own inscrutable way. The last time that I visited the ship, I was quite upset by what I found. There was a human, a physical human, on one of their tables that seemed to grow up out of the floor of their ship. And it seemed to be able to rise and fall through some sort of command that I was unable to notice. So that it was very easy for whoever was working there to deal with this human. The human's astral form was bobbing somewhere near their ceiling, looking down on his physical body, and he was immensely frightened. I mean, there was just nothing but animal fear written all over his astral form. I went over and tried to calm him, but he was just beside himself. It was almost impossible to get through to him other than just to try to project some basic calming energy at him. So I went down and I asked the Greys to please stop examining him and release him back to where they found him. But all they would tell me was, it's okay, he's fine. It's okay, he's fine, it's okay. Nothing I said would change this infuriating response. I did think, though, later on, how interesting it was that this astral form of the man was outside of his body. And I could sense through the mad animal fear that he was not typically an astral projector. In fact, the fact that he was out of his body looking down was a large part of the reason for the fear he was experiencing. He thought he was dead. He didn't know what was going on. So I wondered what it was about this alien examination prompted this gentleman to astral project. And then later on, I thought even further. With my astral projection occurring at such a young age, which is typically, in my experience, very uncharacteristic. Many people start astral projecting when they're older. I started wondering, did my astral projection start in a similar type of circumstance years before, and for some reason it never stopped? I don't know. That was just another idea that ended up running through my head. 2 other times I visited a base that they have on the far side or the dark side of the moon. It's not visible from orbit. It is located, nestled, if you will, in an underground lava tube, I believe. At least that's what it looked like to me. Perhaps they used some sort of artificial boring to do it or to lengthen it. But I suspect at least a large part of it had naturally occurred when the moon was belching forth hot lava. So I visited this facility they have there, which is quite extensive, on 2 different occasions. And when I was there, I asked a variety of questions. Keep in mind that, once again, I have noticed that either there's several species of grays or that they are very fluid with the truth. Because I asked them one basic question for which I ended up getting 4 separate answers. So perhaps the truth is in here and you can help me ferret it out. I asked them, why doesn't your race announce yourselves to humanity? The first answer I got was a perplexing one. They looked at me like they didn't understand the question. And I don't believe it was an English problem, because it was telepathy that I used to communicate. However, what I ended up getting, the feeling that I ended up getting was, imagine if you ask this very same question, why don't you announce yourselves to the species that you're studying, that they answered in much the same way a lion researcher in Africa would react if you ask him, okay, you're abducting, examining, and releasing lions. Have you introduced yourself to the lions? Have you gotten their permission for this process? That was precisely the reaction I got from them the first time I asked them. And I tell you, it definitely put me in my place a little bit as a representative of proud humanity, that perhaps these beings looked upon us as nothing more than animals which they could research and examine and do whatever they like with as they please. Because after all, when you're dealing with dumb animals, you don't typically ask their permission when you want to do science on them. The second answer I got when I asked that question was, well, we have contacted your governments and they've asked us not to announce ourselves for fear of destroying your societies and cultures and religions. And this is certainly an answer which did resonate with me. If you look back in history, whenever a more sophisticated culture, if you want to use that term, a more technological one, encountered a lesser developed one, usually what happened, even if the more developed technology tried to be a little sensitive, what ended up happening is the lesser one and borrowed all the different customs from the what they consider the more advanced society and abandoned their own customs, changing their societies forever. If you see what happened when the Europeans came to the New World about 500 years ago, not only over the next period of 100 years did a large percentage of that civilization die off because of diseases that they had no immunity to, but that their cultures were crushed or disappeared or were abandoned in favor of the new cultures and Christianity and what have you. So I could see where our government might put forward an argument like that. Of course, in a slightly more sarcastic way or slightly more negative way, I can also see our government saying, wow, would our power be challenged? Might we lose our power over our people if they knew there were some other more sophisticated races out there? So either way, I imagine they were worried that they didn't want our cultures disturbed. The third time I asked the question, I got, well, we have a non-interference Star Trek type directive. And that kind of tickled my funny bone. I mean, I am a Star Trek fan. I asked them, I said, have you watched Star Trek? They didn't quite get what my question was there at first. But what I got from them was, well, no, but we have had contact with humans who have mentioned this particular program. So they understood the basic concept. In Star Trek, there was this thing called the non-interference directive. In other words, a more technological society like the Federation, which was the basis behind the whole Star Trek series, had this rule that unless this culture was developed to an extent where it could travel faster than the speed of light, that you didn't announce yourself to them because you might disturb or even destroy their cultures. So I guess it's just sort of a variety of the second answer. But I guess the second answer is our government saying, please don't do this. The third answer would be the gray aliens saying, well, we're not going to announce ourselves. So the last the last answer I got was perhaps the most glib of the other answers. It said, what do you mean we're talking to a human right now? So those were the different answers that I got to my why doesn't your race announce yourselves to humanity. Overall, why are the Greys here? I don't know. Certainly they're doing genetic experiments on humans. There certainly are stories that they're doing genetic experiments on animals. For instance, all these cows that have been drilled out and tissue taken away from them. That obviously tells me they're doing some animal experiments as well. There's been rumors about reproduction experiments. There's been rumors about hybrids. I didn't necessarily see any of that stuff. The only thing I saw was that one human that was abducted. So I can't directly comment on anything other than I just shared with you. I abandoned my explorations into the Greys because, quite frankly, they creep me out. And the last time I talked with them was the time they asked me for my coordinates, my physical coordinates. So I figured, okay, well, I've learned pretty much what I wanted to learn about these creatures, and I'm just going to go ahead and follow other leads and explore other topics. If it's something that you want to go after, you can certainly do so. Once again, the book that started me on this journey was Communion by Whitley Strieber. And I know it's even available for free online if you want to download that, or if you want to go ahead and order it on Amazon. Well, that is this week's video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. If you want to share it, please do that. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you have subscribed, hit that bell button. And as always, please hit me with your questions and comments. I'm always very interested in them. I believe it was Emperor Yoshi, as I said, was the guy who got me started on relating this particular set of experiences as well as others. So I'm always open to suggestions. If I have some light that I can personally add to the topic based on my personal astral projection experience, I will usually be glad to take the suggestion and go with it. So, as always, I will see you on the astral plane.